The deadly mistake. In the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Council ruled with an iron fist. This powerful group of leaders believed they were invincible, their control stretching across countless worlds. They had no idea that their next decision would spark a conflict they were unprepared for. On a routine day in the Council's Grand Hall, a serious meeting was underway. The Council members, with their many years of experience, discussed various matters of the galaxy with a sense of superiority. The room was filled with holographic displays of star maps and reports from different planets. The air was thick with the scent of expensive alien perfumes and the faint hum of advanced technology. Among the reports was a troubling issue. A young human girl, only 16 years old, had been caught trespassing on one of the Council's heavily guarded research stations. The girl had ventured too close while trying to learn more about the mysterious and powerful technology the Council was known to hoard. The Council was outraged. How dare this insignificant human try to interfere with their affairs? The leaders debated her fate. Some argued for a lenient approach, suggesting that she might have acted out of curiosity rather than malice. However, the majority of the Council was adamant about making an example of her. They believed that showing strength would deter any future acts of defiance from the lesser species they ruled over. After much debate, the Council reached a decision. The girl would be executed. This harsh punishment would serve as a warning to others. The Council members were convinced that this display of power would reinforce their authority and maintain their dominance. They ignored the possibility that their actions might provoke a different reaction. The execution order was quickly carried out. The girl, scared and confused, was brought to a public execution area. The Galactic Council made sure that the event was broadcasted across the galaxy. They wanted everyone to see the consequences of crossing them. The girl's death was meant to be a grim reminder of their power. But the Council had underestimated the impact of their decision. As news of the girl's death spread, it reached far beyond the Council's immediate control. The human colonies, scattered across the galaxy, were shocked and enraged. To the humans, the girl was more than just a victim. She was a symbol of their struggle against the Council's oppression. In every human settlement, people reacted with a mixture of anger and sorrow. The girl's death was a rallying cry for those who had long felt oppressed and mistreated by the Council. Stories of her bravery and innocence spread, transforming her into a martyr. People began to unite, driven by a shared sense of injustice. Human leaders saw the widespread outrage and realized the gravity of the Council's mistake. They knew that this wasn't just a local problem. It had ignited a fire across human space. The Council's decision had not only provoked anger, but had also awakened a fierce determination to fight back. The Council's attempt to showcase their power had backfired. Instead of instilling fear, it had sparked a movement. The once fractured human societies began to come together, united by their desire for revenge and justice. The Council's overconfidence had blinded them to the reality of human resilience. As the Council continued to celebrate their apparent victory, they were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. The death of a single girl had set in motion a series of events that would challenge their perceived invincibility. The galaxy was about to see the full force of humanity's wrath, and the Council was not ready for the storm that was coming. This was just the beginning. The Council's deadly mistake would soon lead to consequences far beyond their imagination. The human response was only starting to take shape, and the Council's world was about to be turned upside down. The death of the girl had set off a chain reaction, and the consequences would soon become clear. Humanity's fury. As the news of the young girl's execution spread through human space, it ignited a fury unlike anything seen before. The Galactic Council had hoped their brutal act would serve as a warning, but instead, it had sparked a blazing fire of anger across the human colonies. In every corner of human territory, the reaction was the same. People from all walks of life, scientists, soldiers, civilians, were united in their outrage. Social media channels buzzed with grief and anger, and public forums were filled with heated discussions. The death of the girl had become a rallying point, and the desire for revenge was palpable. In the bustling city of New Earth's capital, a massive protest erupted. Thousands of people gathered in the main square, holding banners that read "Justice for the Girl" and "Down with the Council." The atmosphere was charged with a mix of sorrow and defiance. Leaders of various human factions took to the stage, calling for unity and strength in the face of the Council's cruelty. In the military command centers, the mood was one of grim determination. The high-ranking officers, once focused on routine operations, now found themselves grappling with the weight of the situation. The girl's death had become a personal matter for many of them. The leaders discussed strategies and mobilized their forces, preparing for a possible confrontation with the Council. Across the galaxy, human news networks were abuzz with coverage of the execution. Stories of the girl's bravery and the injustice she suffered were broadcasted on every channel. Human citizens were deeply moved by the reports, and her story became a symbol of the struggle against the Council's oppression. The girl's family, who had initially been hidden away for their safety, were eventually brought into the spotlight. Their grief and anger resonated with millions, further fueling the call for action. The human colonies, once scattered and divided, began to coalesce into a more unified force. Long-standing rivalries and disputes were set aside as the shared cause of justice took precedence. The girl's death had awakened a collective resolve among humans, who now saw themselves not just as separate entities, but as part of a greater struggle against a common enemy. In secret meetings and war rooms, human leaders plotted their response. They knew that a direct attack on the Galactic Council would be risky, but the need to act was urgent. Their strategy involved both military and diplomatic measures, aiming to hit the Council where it hurt, while also rallying support from other galactic factions. Human scientists and engineers worked around the clock to enhance their technologies and weaponry. They knew that if they were to face the Council, they needed every advantage. Research facilities and military bases were abuzz with activity as innovations were rushed into development. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of the full extent of the storm they had unleashed. They continued to underestimate humanity, believing that the anger would eventually fade. But the Council's misjudgment was profound. The girl's death had transformed into a symbol of resistance, and the resolve of humanity was becoming more apparent with each passing day. In the wake of the outrage, a sense of unity and purpose emerged among humans. They were no longer just reacting. They were planning and preparing. The death of the girl had not only sparked outrage, but had also ignited a newfound determination to challenge the Council's authority and fight for justice. As the days passed, the fury among humans grew stronger. The Galactic Council had made a deadly mistake, and humanity was ready to respond. The once quiet whispers of anger had turned into a deafening roar, and the Council would soon face the full force of a united human front. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy and redefine the balance of power. Gathering forces, the death of the young girl had lit a fire across human space, and the call to action was heard loud and clear. Leaders and citizens alike knew that a response was not only necessary but urgent. The once scattered and disorganized human colonies began to unite, preparing for a conflict that would test their strength and resolve. In the command centers of the largest human military bases, the atmosphere was one of intense focus and activity. Generals and admirals, previously engaged in routine operations, now found themselves at the heart of a rapidly escalating crisis. They convened emergency meetings to strategize and mobilize their forces. Maps of the galaxy were covered in colored markers, indicating troop movements and potential targets. Across the galaxy, military personnel began receiving orders to prepare for a large-scale operation. Soldiers, pilots, and engineers, who had once been working on various projects, were now redirected to focus on the upcoming conflict. Training exercises were intensified, and drills were conducted around the clock to ensure that everyone was ready for the fight ahead. Human engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to enhance their technology. The Council's advanced weaponry and defenses were formidable, and humanity knew they needed every edge they could get. Labs and workshops were busy with the development of new weapons, improved spacecraft, and advanced shielding systems. Every technological advancement was scrutinized for its potential impact on the upcoming battle. In the human colonies, the mood was a mix of determination and anxiety. People from all walks of life prepared for the possibility of war. Civilian volunteers signed up to support the military in any way they could, from logistics to medical aid. Communities banded together, organizing supplies and resources to support the troops. Human leaders also reached out to their allies and neutral parties in the galaxy, seeking support for their cause. Diplomatic envoys were sent to various planets and factions, explaining the situation and requesting assistance. Some allies were quick to offer support, while others were more cautious, weighing the risks of opposing the Galactic Council. In every major city and military installation, the preparations were visible. Vehicles were being repaired and upgraded, starships were being refitted and stocked, and supply chains were optimized to ensure that nothing was left to chance. The urgency of the situation was clear, and the human effort was all-encompassing. Public morale was kept high through speeches and broadcasts. Leaders addressed the people, reinforcing the importance of their mission and emphasizing the need for unity and resolve. Stories of the girl's bravery and the injustice of her death were shared frequently, keeping the cause at the forefront of everyone's minds. Amidst all this preparation, a secretive effort was underway. Intelligence agencies worked to gather information on the Galactic Council's activities and weaknesses. Spies and scouts were sent to infiltrate Council-controlled areas, collecting valuable data that could turn the tide of the conflict. Human strategists also began planning their attack. They studied the Council's known defenses and sought out vulnerabilities. The goal was to strike decisively and efficiently, minimizing casualties while maximizing impact. Detailed plans were drawn up, outlining every possible scenario and response. The Galactic Council remained unaware of the full scale of the preparations taking place. Their leaders, still dismissive of the human response, continued with their daily routines and activities. They were confident in their ability to handle any challenge, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. As the days turned into weeks, the preparations reached their peak. The various human factions were now a cohesive force, ready to confront the Council with a united front. The sense of anticipation was palpable, and every person involved knew that the upcoming conflict would be a defining moment in human history. The stage was set, and humanity was ready. The Galactic Council's deadly mistake had galvanized the human response, leading to a coordinated and determined effort. The forces were gathered, the plans were in place, and the time for action was drawing near. The galaxy was about to witness the full might of a united human force, and the outcome of the impending battle would have far-reaching consequences. Council's mockery. As the preparations for war continued across human space, the Galactic Council remained dismissive of the growing human threat. Their leaders, secure in their belief of invincibility, underestimated the seriousness of the situation. Instead of acknowledging the gravity of their mistake, they chose to mock and belittle the human response. In the Council's opulent chambers, the mood was one of arrogance and disdain. The Council members gathered for a meeting to discuss the latest developments. They reviewed reports from their intelligence agencies, which highlighted the human mobilization and preparation. But rather than taking these reports seriously, the Council members ridiculed the human efforts. One of the Council's senior officials, a tall and imposing figure named Xeril, scoffed at the reports. "Look at this," Xeril said, pointing to a holographic display of human military movements. "They think they can make a difference with these pitiful preparations. Their forces are nothing compared to ours." The other Council members chuckled and exchanged amused glances. Another official, Lady Serena, leaned back in her chair with a smug expression. "They're merely reacting out of anger," she said. "Their so-called preparations are nothing but empty gestures. They've always been good at boasting, but they lack the real power to back it up." The Council's dismissive attitude was reflected in their public communications as well. They issued statements and broadcasts mocking the human response. Official channels were filled with propaganda suggesting that the human efforts were futile and laughable. The council portrayed themselves as benevolent rulers who were merely putting down a minor rebellion. One broadcast featured a holographic reenactment of the girl's execution, presented in a way that belittled her death. The council portrayed it as a minor inconvenience rather than a serious mistake. This only fueled the anger of the human population, who saw it as a gross disrespect to the girl and their entire species. In the Galactic Council's high-tech entertainment lounges, members watched comedies and dramas that ridiculed the humans. These shows depicted the humans as inept and foolish, further reinforcing the Council's belief in their own superiority. The Council members enjoyed these broadcasts, finding them amusing rather than concerning. Meanwhile, in their private discussions, the Council members continued to mock the human response. They joked about the upcoming conflict, treating it as an amusing diversion rather than a genuine threat. "Perhaps we should send them a medal for their efforts," Zarel said sarcastically. "After all, they're putting in so much effort for nothing." The Council's mockery did not go unnoticed. Human leaders and strategists were well aware of the Council's attitude. They saw the dismissive comments and propaganda, which only fueled their determination to prove the Council wrong. The more the Council mocked them, the more resolved they became to show that they were not to be underestimated. In the human colonies, the mockery was met with a mix of outrage and resolve. The public's anger grew as they saw their efforts being belittled. Protesters took to the streets, not just demanding justice, but also vowing to prove their worth. The Council's attitude had become a rallying point, driving the humans to work even harder and prepare more meticulously. Human scientists and engineers intensified their efforts, determined to demonstrate that they were more than just a weak and angry species. They pushed their technological advancements to new heights, driven by the desire to make the Council regret their arrogance. The Galactic Council's mockery, instead of diminishing the human resolve, had the opposite effect. It galvanized the human forces, transforming their anger into a focused determination. The Council's dismissive attitude had become a catalyst for the humans to rise to the challenge, setting the stage for a confrontation that would soon reveal the true extent of their power. As the Council continued to underestimate and mock humanity, the stage was set for a dramatic showdown. The humans, now more unified and determined than ever, prepared to show the Council that their mockery would come back to haunt them. The upcoming battle would not just be about revenge. It would be about proving that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. You said. Part 5. The Surprise Attack. The Surprise Attack. The Galactic Council's dismissive attitude had done more than anger humanity. It had fueled their resolve. The meticulous preparations and unified determination among the human forces were about to culminate in a surprise attack that would change the course of the conflict. In the early hours of a crisp galactic morning, human military leaders convened in a hidden command center deep within an asteroid field. The room was filled with a tense energy as officers reviewed final plans and coordinated their movements. The holographic maps displayed a detailed strategy, highlighting key targets and escape routes. There was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air. The attack was carefully timed to catch the Council off guard. The human fleet, consisting of sleek and powerful warships, had been quietly maneuvering into position for weeks. Their movements had been shielded by advanced stealth technology, preventing the Council's sensors from detecting their approach. Now, the time had come to strike. At precisely the designated hour, a fleet of human warships emerged from their hiding places, moving swiftly towards the Council's main space station, a colossal structure orbiting a vibrant blue planet. The station, a symbol of the Council's power, was heavily defended with advanced weaponry and shields. But the Council's overconfidence had left them vulnerable to the unexpected. The human ships approached silently, using the cover of the asteroid field to remain undetected until the last possible moment. The attack force was divided into several groups, each assigned a specific target: the space station's power generators, communication arrays, and weapon control centers. The goal was to disrupt the Council's defenses and create chaos. As the human fleet moved into position, a sudden burst of energy disrupted the tranquility of the galactic night. The first wave of human ships fired their weapons, unleashing a barrage of missiles and energy blasts that struck the space station with devastating precision. The Council's defenses, unprepared for such a sudden assault, struggled to respond. Alarms blared throughout the space station as the surprise attack unfolded. Council members, caught off guard in their lavish quarters, scrambled to understand what was happening. The once confident leaders were now faced with the harsh reality of an organized and ruthless offensive. Panic spread through the station as systems failed and explosions rocked the massive structure. Human ships moved with practiced efficiency, their pilots and crews working in perfect harmony. The attack was swift and brutal, designed to maximize impact while minimizing risk. The space station's shields flickered and failed under the relentless assault, allowing human forces to penetrate deeper into the heart of the Council's stronghold. In the chaos of the attack, human soldiers boarded the station, executing their mission with precision. They engaged Council security forces, who were disorganized and overwhelmed by the surprise assault. The human troops fought with fierce determination, their every action driven by the desire to avenge the death of the young girl and to prove their strength. Back on the human ships, command centers were abuzz with activity. Officers monitored the progress of the attack, coordinating with ground teams and adjusting strategies in real time. The element of surprise had given them a significant advantage, and they were determined to make the most of it. As the attack continued, the Galactic Council's leaders realized the full extent of their miscalculation. They had underestimated the resolve and capability of humanity, and the surprise attack was a stark reminder of their vulnerability. The space station, once a symbol of their power, was now a battleground under siege. The surprise attack was a resounding success. The human forces inflicted significant damage on the space station, disrupting its operations and leaving the Council scrambling to regain control. The attack demonstrated not only the technical prowess of humanity, but also their ability to execute a complex and coordinated military operation. In the aftermath of the surprise attack, the Galactic Council faced a new reality. The once unshakable confidence of their leaders was replaced by fear and uncertainty. Humanity had shown that they were not to be underestimated, and the stage was now set for a confrontation that would redefine the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council's arrogance had led them to underestimate their opponent, and the consequences of their mistake were becoming increasingly clear. Panic in the Council. The Galactic Council's surprise attack had sent shockwaves through their ranks. The once confident leaders, who had mocked humanity's efforts, were now facing a crisis of unprecedented scale. Panic and chaos gripped the Council as their grand space station, a symbol of their might, was being ravaged by the human assault. In the heart of the space station, the Council's main control room was a scene of utter confusion. Holographic displays flickered erratically, and alarms blared incessantly. The once calm and orderly environment was now filled with frantic activity. Council members, who had once been dismissive of the human threat, were scrambling to respond to the unfolding disaster. Zeril, one of the senior officials known for his arrogance, paced nervously across the control room. His usual composed demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of panic. How could they penetrate our defenses so easily? He demanded, his voice rising with frustration. We were prepared for minor uprisings, not a full-scale assault. Lady Serena, known for her aloofness, was equally distressed. She was furiously typing commands into her console, attempting to regain control over the failing systems. "This is a nightmare," she muttered. "Our shields are down, and our communication lines are severed. We're effectively blind." The once efficient response teams were now overwhelmed. Council security forces, initially confident in their ability to handle any threat, were now fighting a desperate battle. They were disorganized, struggling to counter the human attack. The human soldiers, driven by a fierce determination, moved with precision, exploiting every weakness in the Council's defenses. Meanwhile, the Council's emergency protocols were activated, but they were too slow to mitigate the damage. Evacuation orders were issued, and the station's personnel scrambled to escape. The Council's leadership, once comfortable in their fortified quarters, was now facing the reality of a rapidly deteriorating situation. As the attack continued, the Council's leaders tried to assess the damage. Reports from various departments highlighted the severity of the situation. Key systems were damaged or destroyed, causing critical failures throughout the station. Power generators were compromised, leading to widespread outages and further exacerbating the chaos. In a desperate move, the Council's remaining leaders tried to contact their allies for assistance, but their communications were disrupted, leaving them isolated and unable to call for reinforcements. The realization that they were alone and vulnerable added to their growing sense of dread. The panic spread beyond the control room. Throughout the space station, personnel and civilians were fleeing in every direction. The once pristine corridors and chambers were now littered with debris and chaos. The space station, once a symbol of power and control, was now a battleground in disarray. As the human forces continued their assault, they took control of key areas within the station. Strategic locations, such as the command centers and weapon storage rooms, were secured, further crippling the Council's ability to respond. The human strategy had been executed flawlessly, exploiting every opportunity for maximum impact. The Galactic Council's leaders convened an emergency meeting in a secure location, away from the immediate danger. They were stunned and disoriented, their previous arrogance replaced by fear and uncertainty. This was supposed to be a minor skirmish, one of them said, his voice trembling. We underestimated their capabilities. The Council members' attempts to regroup and devise a counter-strategy were met with increasing frustration. The human forces had shown themselves to be not only formidable, but also highly organized and strategic. The once confident Council now faced the harsh reality of their miscalculations. In the aftermath of the initial assault, the Council's leadership was left to confront the consequences of their arrogance. The surprise attack had shattered their sense of security and left them grappling with a new and daunting reality. The humans, who had been underestimated and ridiculed, had now proven themselves as a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council was forced to reevaluate their position and strategy. The panic that had gripped them was a stark reminder of their vulnerability and the extent of humanity's resolve. The attack had not only caused significant damage, but had also shifted the balance of power in the galaxy, setting the stage for a conflict that would test the limits of both sides. The big battle. The Galactic Council's space station was in ruins, and the stakes were higher than ever. The surprise attack had shaken the Council to its core, but the humans knew that the real test lay ahead. With their momentum building, the human forces prepared for a decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The battle was set to unfold in the vast emptiness of space, just outside the remains of the Council's space station. Human warships, sleek and menacing, gathered in formation, their weapons primed and ready. The ships, having proved their capabilities in the earlier attack, were now poised for a larger and more critical engagement. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the initial assault, scrambled to regroup. They had called upon their remaining forces and allies to mount a defense. The Council's fleet, a mix of heavily armed warships and defensive platforms, moved into position around their station. The once imposing defenses were now a patchwork of hastily assembled units, struggling to repair the damage from the surprise attack. As the human fleet advanced, the tension in space was palpable. The void was filled with the hum of engines and the occasional flash of energy as ships prepared for the clash. Commanders on both sides were focused, their eyes locked on the incoming battle. For the Council, this was a chance to prove their superiority and reclaim their dominance. For the humans, it was a chance to cement their victory and show that they could not be ignored. The battle began with a thunderous roar as both fleets opened fire. Human ships unleashed a barrage of energy blasts and missiles, targeting the Council's defenses with precision. The Council's ships, caught in the crossfire, struggled to maintain their shields and return fire. Explosions lit up the dark expanse as the two fleets clashed in a brutal display of firepower. In the chaos, human pilots exhibited exceptional skill and coordination. They darted through the enemy's ranks, dodging incoming fire and targeting critical systems. Their tactics were aggressive and well-coordinated, aiming to disable the Council's ships rather than simply destroy them. The goal was to create enough disruption to force a surrender or negotiation. The Council's response was frantic. Their remaining ships tried to form defensive formations, but the damage from the earlier attack had left them disorganized. The once proud fleet was now struggling to cope with the relentless assault. The Council's commanders issued desperate orders, trying to regain control and mount a counterattack. However, their efforts were hampered by the damage and confusion. On the battlefield, human warships moved with ruthless efficiency. They targeted the Council's key assets, including their command ships and strategic weaponry. The Council's remaining forces fought bravely, but they were outmatched and outgunned. The human strategy of targeting high-value targets paid off, as the Council's ability to coordinate and defend was severely compromised. Amidst the chaos, a crucial turning point came when a squadron of human fighters successfully breached the Council's outer defenses and launched a targeted assault on their main command ship. The command ship, a massive and heavily fortified vessel, was the nerve center of the Council's fleet. The human fighters, using advanced technology and tactics, managed to disable its critical systems, causing widespread confusion and disarray among the Council's forces. With their command ship incapacitated, the Council's fleet was thrown into chaos. The once coordinated defense broke down as ships struggled to communicate and respond. Human forces seized the opportunity, pressing their advantage and dealing a decisive blow to the Council's remaining ships. The battle was turning in favor of the humans. As the battle raged on, the Council's leaders were faced with the harsh reality of their situation. The realization that they were on the brink of defeat led to a desperate plea for surrender. The once mighty Council, brought low by their own arrogance and underestimations, now faced the consequences of their actions. The battle, fierce and dramatic, marked a turning point in the conflict. The humans, driven by a desire for justice and recognition, had demonstrated their strength and resolve. The Galactic Council's defeat was a testament to the power of determination and unity. The outcome of the battle would have far-reaching implications, reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy and setting the stage for a new era of diplomacy and conflict. The Galactic Council's surrender. The battle had raged fiercely, but as the dust began to settle, the Galactic Council faced an undeniable truth. Their forces were beaten, and their once unassailable position was now in ruins. The final stages of the conflict unfolded with the Council's surrender becoming an imminent reality. In the command center of the Council's main space station, the situation was dire. The once bustling hub of activity was now eerily quiet, save for the occasional flicker of failing lights and the hum of damaged systems. Council members, their faces etched with stress and defeat, huddled together in a secure chamber. The once confident leaders were now grappling with the full extent of their failure. Viziril, the senior official who had mocked humanity's efforts, sat slumped in his chair, his arrogance replaced by a look of despair. "We can't continue like this," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "Our forces are in disarray, our command ship is disabled, and the human fleet has us cornered. We have no choice." Lady Serena, her composure shattered, nodded in agreement. She had been frantically working to restore communications and defensive systems, but her efforts had been in vain. "We're out of options," she said. "The humans have shown that they are a force to be reckoned with. We need to surrender or face complete annihilation." As the Council members debated their next move, the human forces continued to press their advantage. The damaged Council ships were being picked off one by one, and the remaining defenders were struggling to hold their ground. The human fleet, though battered from the intense battle, maintained a disciplined and focused assault. In the midst of the chaos, a human envoy was dispatched to the Council's command center. The envoy, a senior diplomat known for his negotiation skills, carried a simple message. The time had come to discuss surrender terms. The human forces had achieved a decisive victory, and the Council's leaders needed to face the consequences of their actions. The envoy was escorted into the Council's chamber, where he was met with a tense silence. The Council members, their pride wounded and their authority in tatters, understood that the end was near. The envoy delivered his message with a calm but firm demeanor, outlining the terms for surrender and the conditions that the humans expected to be met. The Council members, faced with the reality of their situation, had little choice but to agree. The terms were clear: an immediate cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal of Council forces from human-controlled space, and a formal apology for the unjust execution that had sparked the conflict. The humans also demanded reparations and assurances that such an incident would never occur again. The agreement was reluctantly accepted, and the formal surrender was arranged. The Council's flag was lowered, and the human forces, though weary, maintained their vigilance. The surrender marked a significant turning point in the conflict, with the once mighty Galactic Council now relegated to a position of submission. As the formalities of the surrender were completed, the atmosphere on the Council's space station was one of somber reflection. The leaders who had once ruled with arrogance and confidence now faced the consequences of their actions. The humiliation of surrender was a stark reminder of their miscalculation and the power of a united human front. In the aftermath, the human forces began the process of securing the Council's space station and restoring order. The once bustling command center, now under human control, was a symbol of their victory and the new balance of power in the galaxy. The human diplomats worked to establish terms for the future, aiming to ensure peace and prevent further conflicts. The Galactic Council's surrender was not just a military victory for humanity. It was a profound statement of their strength and resolve. The conflict had demonstrated that even the most powerful adversaries could be challenged and defeated when faced with unity and determination. As the galaxy adjusted to the new reality, the events of the battle and the Council's surrender would serve as a lasting reminder of the consequences of arrogance and the power of it. A new beginning. The surrender of the Galactic Council had marked the end of a tumultuous chapter in the galaxy's history. With the once powerful Council now subdued, the stage was set for a new era. The aftermath of the conflict brought both challenges and opportunities as humanity prepared to forge a new path forward. In the wake of the surrender, the human forces began to take control of the Council's former territories. The Council's space station, now a symbol of their defeat, was transformed into a hub for reconstruction and diplomacy. Human engineers and soldiers worked tirelessly to repair the damage, restore essential systems, and ensure the station was secure. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. The achievement was hailed as a monumental triumph, a testament to humanity's resilience and unity. The conflict had been fierce, but the successful defense and eventual victory against the Galactic Council were seen as a defining moment in human history. Amidst the celebrations, there was a growing recognition of the need to build on this victory. The human leadership, having proven their strength, now faced the task of establishing a new order in the galaxy. Diplomatic envoys were dispatched to the various galactic factions, including former Council allies, to negotiate terms for lasting peace and cooperation. The goal was to ensure that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. The human leadership was determined to foster a new era of diplomacy and mutual respect. They aimed to build alliances, establish fair trade agreements, and promote stability across the galaxy. The lessons learned from the conflict were applied to create a more inclusive and cooperative interstellar community. On the Council's former space station, representatives from different species and factions gathered to participate in the peace talks. The once remote and impersonal environment was now bustling with activity and discussions. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism as the various parties worked towards common goals. The peace talks were complex and required careful negotiation. The human diplomats, guided by principles of fairness and justice, navigated the discussions with skill and integrity. They were determined to ensure that the terms of peace were not only favorable, but also sustainable in the long term. One of the key agreements reached was the establishment of a new intergalactic council designed to replace the old Galactic Council. This new body was to be more representative of the diverse factions within the galaxy, with an emphasis on equal participation and cooperation. The aim was to prevent the concentration of power that had led to the previous council's downfall. As the new intergalactic council took shape, the focus shifted to rebuilding and integrating. Former council worlds were slowly brought into the fold, their citizens given a voice in the new governance structures. The process was gradual, but there was a palpable sense of progress and hope. Humanity's role in this new order was significant. The victory over the Galactic Council had not only demonstrated their strength, but also their capacity for leadership and diplomacy. Human representatives were respected for their fair-minded approach and commitment to a balanced and equitable galaxy. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal, though the impact of the conflict remained a part of the collective memory. The victory was celebrated, but there was also a renewed focus on maintaining peace and preparing for future challenges. The experience had reinforced the importance of vigilance and readiness. The new beginning was marked by a cautious but hopeful outlook. The galaxy, once dominated by the arrogance of the Galactic Council, was now entering an era of renewed possibilities. The lessons learned from the conflict served as a reminder of the strength found in unity and the importance of mutual respect. In the end, the fall of the Galactic Council and the subsequent rise of a new era represented a profound shift in the galaxy's trajectory. Humanity had emerged not only as a powerful force, but also as a beacon of hope for a more cooperative and just interstellar community. The new beginning was a testament to the enduring spirit of exploration, diplomacy, and resilience that defined the future of the galaxy.